The Enneagram is a tool that can help you understand yourself better. Some people say that is useful for Christians because it helps them to see how God has created them uniquely. But others, they argue that the system of categorizing people could lead down the wrong path or make us feel less than Christian-like people if we don't fit neatly into one of these categories.
Be strong.
Grace and peace. I'm Vaughn Sanders, and this is the Work It Out podcast, where I answer everyday questions from a biblical perspective so that you can be strong and courageous in living out your faith. Today, I'll share with you 4 things you should know about the Enneagram. Now, if you've never heard of this, you might be wondering, what is the Enneagram? The Enneagram of personality is a categorization tool that classifies human personality into 9 interconnected personality types. The symbol of the Enneagram is a figure that's made up of 3 parts. There's a circle and an inner triangle and an irregular hexagonal or periodic figure. There are some variations to the titles of these classifications, but these are the most common. Type 1 is the reformer. This is a rational and idealistic person. Most people would call them perfectionist. Type 2 is the helper. This is a caring and interpersonal type, and we might know them as kind of like a people pleaser. Type 3 is the achiever. They're success-oriented, they're pragmatic, they're driven to excel in virtually everything that they do. Type 4 is the individualist. They're folks that are sensitive and they may be dramatic or even self-absorbed. Type 5, investigator. This person can be intense and perceptive and innovative. Type 6, loyalist. They're committed, engaging, and responsible. Type 7 is the enthusiast, and this is someone who is spontaneous. They can be versatile, but they can also be easily distracted and scattered. Type 8 is a challenger. This type is dominating. They're powerful. They're self-confident. Finally, there's type 9. This is the peacemaker. These people tend to be easygoing, reassuring, and agreeable. If you take the test, you'll find out that you're not just one of these types. We all have a mixture of each of these in our makeup, and you'll have one that's primary and then some that are strong adjacent. The cool Enneagram people call these adjacent ones wings. So you could be described as a type 2 with a wing 3. For example, my primary type is 1. I'm part of the reformer or the perfectionist. I like for things to be in order, and I'm focused, and I'm constantly improving myself and the things that I see that need improvement around me. I tend to be a hard worker and with a high moral standard, but I can also be very critical of myself, and I hate to make mistakes, and I can be a little passive aggressive. My wings or secondary behaviors are 9 and 2. So where did this Enneagram come from? Now, this is where it really gets interesting. Some of the earliest mentions of the Enneagram is from a fellow named George Gurdjieff, who was an occultist or a mystic teacher. And nobody knows if he actually came up with the system or he got it from somewhere else. But later it was picked up and further developed by someone named Oscar Achazo. In his book, The History of the Integral Teachings, he talks about and describes 9 ways in which a person's ego becomes fixated within the psyche. The principal psychology connections between the 9 ego fixations, they can be mapped to the points and lines of the circle that we see in the Enneagram figure. Now, Oscar claims to have discovered the meaning of these personality types of the Enneagram when it was taught to him by an archangel while he was high on mescaline, which is apparently some kind of psychedelic hallucinogenic drug. Anyway, one of Achazo's students spread the Enneagram to various Catholic communities around the 1970s. And in 1997, a former Jesuit named Don Rizzo co-founded the Enneagram Institute in order to further develop and research and teach the Enneagram. So why are Christians so hype about the Enneagram? It seems like this thing popped up out of nowhere, and It's become a big fad that a lot of Christians are talking about all of a sudden. People are always in search of understanding themselves and others, especially when it comes to the workplace and relationships. Instead of talking about their astrology signs like Pisces and Libra, they can tell people that they're INSJ or ESFP. Those come from the Myers Briggs. In fact, my family and I like to sit around and watch a guy named Frank James on YouTube as he acts out the 16 different personality types in various situations. So like the Myers Briggs and to some extent the astrology signs, the Enneagram enables us to share information about ourselves and our personalities. The idea is that if I understand my personality type and how I tend to operate, then that will inform how others act as well and how they can better interact with me. So why are some Christians opposed to the Enneagram? As I explained earlier, when you really start digging into the Enneagram and where it came from, it's a little sus. I mean, it was developed by an occultist while they were high. So what do you do with that? I was in Barnes & Noble a couple months ago and saw books about the Enneagram in the religious section. I can understand if it was the self-help or psychology section, but religion? What's up with that? Then let's look at the symbol one more time. Does that look familiar to you? Maybe it's a coincidence that it looks like something that was typically associated with occult groups like Wiccans and Satanists. Hey, by the way, have you blessed the like button yet? Are you subscribed so you don't miss any of this knowledge that I might drop in the future? Why don't you go ahead and do that, like right now? So, should Christians use the Enneagram? I've taken a ton of different personality tests in my life, from the Myers Briggs to DISC to Strengths Finders and now Enneagram. And most of these were done in the course of my professional career and leadership so that I can understand myself as well as be able to seek to understand the people on my team that I lead. I kind of put the Enneagram in the middle between astrology and something like the Myers Briggs, solely based on its history. For me, there might be some things that can be learned from the Enneagram that could be useful just on the surface and may not be harmful. I don't know what they're teaching at the Enneagram Institute, but I definitely wouldn't go any deeper than just taking the test and finding out your score. Ultimately, I think it's a matter of conscience. If you don't think you should mess with it because of its foundation in the occult, I think that would be wise. However, if you're not convinced by that particular argument, I certainly wouldn't break fellowship with you or think it's a sin either. This might fit into the category that Paul talks about in Romans about not making another brother stumble. I know and am persuaded in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself. Still, to someone who considers a thing to be unclean, to that one it is unclean. So then let us pursue what promotes peace and what builds up one another. Do not tear down God's work because of food. Everything is clean, but it is wrong to make someone fall by what he eats. It is a good thing not to eat meat or drink wine or anything that makes your brother or sister stumble. Whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Blessed is the one who does not condemn himself by what he approves, but whoever doubts stands condemned if he eats, because he is eating not from faith, and everyone that is not from faith is sin. So what are your thoughts on the Enneagram? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you've taken the test, let me know what your numbers are and what wing you are as well. While you're there, don't forget to bless the like button and subscribe for future episodes. Until then, I hope that you will be strong and courageous in living out your faith today.